My child, we may be evolved, but deep down, we are still animals.
I've been waiting for the chance to talk about Zootopia. You know, I'm a stickler for movies with human-like animals, and while this one isn't the first, this is definitely my favorite. The way the animals are integrated into this world is so interesting and fun. Seriously, forget the story, look at the world, it's so beautiful. Tundra Town, Sahara Square, the Rainforest District. I mean, that's not even mentioning downtown Zootopia. The film was so well thought out in this regard. Tell me in the comments what district you'd like to live in, if any at all, because Boneboro seems like a really nice vibe too. I'd love to live in the Rainforest District. I know I'd be sleeping a lot. Before we continue, please hit that like button and subscribe if you're new, as it is greatly appreciated. Anyways, aside from how gorgeous this film is, Zootopia has a lot of hidden but not so hidden racial undertones that I find many of us to enjoy most about it. Granted, it wasn't perfect, and there are certainly videos out there that make that clear, but some of what we got was genuinely enjoyable for me in ways I think really strengthened the film. I often see people questioning what animal species represents what real-world racial group, but I don't really think that's the point. I will say though hypocritically, the foxes are so obviously black, but the point directors Byron Howard and Rich Moore were trying to make was that the world is complicated, and it's complicated for all of us. Alone, it's a cool premise, but that would probably fit better in a film about a singular species with different traits, rather than one where carnivores and herbivores exist. There are omnivores too, but they're kind of irrelevant in this movie. Poor guys. But what's my point? Well, I've seen enough videos of gazelles getting hawked down by cheetahs to know that the prey kinda have a point. Relate this to human history, especially American history for example, and it gets a little uncomfortable to talk about. The message becomes a bit blurred when, naturally speaking, carnivores eat herbivores. It actually is in their biology, so again, comparing it to American history, for example, it's like, you sure you want to go there? Bear in mind, I understand that this is its own world, entirely separate from ours. It's just hard to accept that when you see things like this.
I gotta tell you, you are even cuter than I thought you'd be.
Ooh, you probably didn't know, but a bunny can call another bunny cute, but when other animals do it, it's a little...
I am so sorry.
This is one of the multiple moments throughout the film that can easily be treated as an allegory for things we've seen in our own world. So it's hard not to compare the two. But I digress, as I did enjoy this film for a reason. Zootopia is one of those movies considered fairly mature for a typical Disney animated flick. While I'd argue we've gotten darker moments in films like Bambi for example.
We made it! We made it, Mother! Mother! Mother!
Zootopia's willingness to try and call out everyone's biases as a way to inspire change is something I consider admirable. Besides, sometimes creativity is a little messy. I saw something recently about Zootopia that blew my mind.
Is this a taming party?
With this collar, Zootopia welcomes you.
With this collar, Zootopia welcomes me.
The taming party was genuinely one of the darkest deleted scenes I've ever learned about. Seeing how excited the little dude was to grow up, then picturing the reality that's coming for him as you see the sadness in his father's eyes is heartbreaking. I wish they could have kept it, but I can also see why they went without it. It's hinted that they get a shock whenever they get too agitated, or in this case excited.
Morris!
So with that being said, a premise like that could easily be overused and relied upon as a crutch, so much so that it devalues the emotion in a scene. Besides, with all the excitement in this film, Nick would have been getting shocked the entire film. Not to mention, I think we would have lost a lot of cool chase sequences. But as tense as this single scene was, in fact so tense it literally would have changed the entire trajectory of the film to the point that you'd likely have to rewrite the entire script, it's still a deleted scene. So canonically speaking, it ain't relevant. So with what we're left with, I guess there's only one question I can think of. How deep was Zootopia? Thousands of years ago, prey were hunted by predators. Judy during her play mentions that it was in their biological nature to well,
And death.
over time they evolved, and together Zootopia became the first place where animals joined together in peace.
Zootopia, where our ancestors first joined together in peace and declared that anyone can be anything!
We quickly learned that things aren't as perfect as we'd hope. Judy's parents aren't supportive of her goal to be an officer, and we see that foxes are one of the more untrusted mammals in Zootopia. Judy's parents drilled that fact into her, and seeing as she experienced this as a kid,
Cry, little baby bunny, cry, cry.
Oh, you don't know when to quit, do you?
that was a clear indicator that she likely developed a bias towards foxes that would affect her relationship with Nick later in the film. These experiences motivated her, and her time at the police academy was no joke. Because of her size, she had to use her wit to overcome many odds. Her gender also played a role in this. Judy being a female was certainly an underlying motivator. Constantly being told she could never be a cop made it all the more satisfying when she finished top of her class as valedictorian, and the first graduate of Mayor Lionheart's Mammal Inclusion Initiative. I wonder if people were being called DEI hires in 2016. If not, the writers were on Simpsons level foreshadowing. If Judy gets called an MII hire in Zootopia 2, that confirms it. You heard it here first, people. I can't stress enough how much I want this place to be real. Anyways, Judy gets a quick dose of reality after spending a day in the big city of Zootopia. What at first seemed like a melting pot of peace and prosperity was actually a rather complicated and dysfunctional place. After learning about the missing mammals, we learned that they're all predators, an early hint that predators are being targeted. While the other cops are assigned tasks to find the missing animals, Judy is placed on parking duty. This is treated like a bad thing in the film, but it's your first day. It makes sense that you start small, but regardless, this is when we see Judy's first encounter with Nick Wilde the Fox, and one of her key flaws. Her biases toward foxes, which was drilled into her by her parents, and of course her experiences as a kid with Gideon, shows just how harmful and real this scene truly is for Nick.
You're doing skulking around during daylight hours, but I don't want any trouble in here. So hit the road.
I'm not looking for any trouble either, sir. I simply want to buy a jumbo pop for my little boy.
Dude, I get it's just fox repellent, but I know y'all see what I see. This is one of the closest moments in the film that really showcases the dangers of an inexperienced police officer. Top of her class, yes, but once you put that badge on, you've got to put those biases aside or you'll get someone seriously hurt. It's a shame it took a perceived kid for her to check herself on that. After helping pay for the popsicle, she says how unfortunate it is that people have backwards attitudes toward foxes. The irony.
Just want to say you're a great dad and just a real articulate fella.
Ah, well, that is high praise.
Oh my god. So yeah, don't question why black folks relate to the foxes so much. Now with that being said, of course, I love my people, but sometimes they really let me down. The brothers in particular. Yeah, so he has a good reason though. I was gonna talk about it later, but screw it. Nick reveals later in the film, after committing to help Judy on her case, that he once wanted to become a junior Ranger Scout. He would be the first predator in the group, but unfortunately for him, the others weren't so enthused by that.
Even though you're a fox?
What? No! No! What did I do wrong, you guys? No! Please tell me, what did I do wrong? What did I do?
He tells Judy that if the world's only gonna see a fox as shifty and untrustworthy, then there's no point in trying to be anything else. And I'm sorry, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but I know at least 10 black people that either live by this sentiment or at least joke about living by this sentiment. And it's just so real. Judy eventually gets involved in a case with the help of Assistant Mayor Bellwether, now only having 48 hours to solve the case or be fired. Due to desperation, Judy blackmails Nick on more than a few occasions to force him to help her. Along the way, they need Bellwether's help again, and we see early on how underappreciated she is at her position.
But you're the assistant mayor of Zootopia.
Oh, I'm more of a glorified secretary. I think Mayor Lionheart just wanted the sheep vote. But he did give me that nice mug.
Oh.
Bruh, I'm thinking Tyler the Creator was right, man. Perhaps this movie is about black people. Well, this would hint at Bellwether's future actions, or at least one of them. Later they find all the missing animals, but are shocked to learn that Mayor Lionheart is involved in their disappearance. He locked them up, experimenting on them to figure out why they were going savage. A scientist, left with no other answers, asks him to consider their biology. While it's extremely unfair to assume that, in this universe at least, I do understand why Lionheart was so against it. He just went about it the wrong way, caring more about his position as mayor, who just so happens to be a predator. Man, I don't know why they chose Predator, but anyways, regardless, Judy sees this and I think felt more comfortable assuming their biology was a factor after hearing the scientists mention it themselves. With that being said, all seems well, but when Judy is asked to answer questions at the presser, she does an extremely awful job, putting sensitive information out there that would genuinely stir up panic and mistrust.
In their DNA, can you elaborate on that, please?
Yes. What I mean is, thousands of years ago, predators survived through their aggressive hunting instincts. For whatever reason, they seem to be reverting back to their primitive savage ways.
Of course, I doubt Judy meant any real harm, but some information is better left unsaid until all information is provided and proven. Otherwise, just deflect the question. I would ask why no one prepared her for this, but we learn later on that Bellwether orchestrated the entire conspiracy, so she used this speech to keep the attacks going.
Officer Hobbs is down. Please hurry.
No, Nick, don't do this. Fight it.
Oh, but he can't help it, can he? Since Preds are just biologically predisposed to be savages.
The speech strained Judy and Nick's relationship. This girl even told him he's not like other foxes.
I just stated the facts of the case. I mean, it's not like a bunny could go savage.
Right, but a fox could, huh?
Nick, stop it. You're not like them.
Oh, there's a them now.
You know what I mean. You're not that kind of predator.
Like what? Well, after discovering that night howlers, sorry, that's something I forgot to mention earlier. Night howlers was the first clue found after visiting Mr. Big's driver in the Rainforest District. They thought it might have referred to the wolves at Lionheart's secret prison, but it's later revealed that the night howlers was the common name for the plant Midnicampum haloscipius. Look, that's the best way I can pronounce that. Admittedly, it was a little convenient that they'd been planting these exact plants in their family. Like, sure, Judy isn't involved in farming like the rest of the family, but I don't know. Nonetheless, it'd be Gideon that helped her uncover the mystery. And speaking of Gideon, it was nice to hear him apologize for his past misdeeds.
Hey, Judy, I'd just like to say I'm sorry for the way I behaved in my youth. I had a lot of self-doubt, and it manifested itself in the form of unchecked rage and aggression. I was a major jerk.
I don't think I'd work with the guy that literally scarred my daughter, but I like seeing him get a second chance regardless. The Foxes were low-key the slept-on heroes of this film when you think about it. After they uncovered the mystery, Bellwether outs herself as the mastermind of the crimes, and the city was back to its old self. Ultimately, they walk away from it learning that a huge melting pot of a city can produce something truly beautiful, but cultural differences can make things messy behind it all, and that's okay. Life is difficult for everyone in their own right. It's up to us to respect each other's experiences and try our best to solve conflicts without resorting to drastic measures. Of course, that won't always happen, but when it does, it's our responsibility to recognize each other as individuals, and not just some small portion of an overarching statistic that will leave you having preconceived notions about people that'll likely develop distrust, or maybe even hatred. The film dives even deeper than that. While it does try to convince us that the root of law enforcement is meant for good, and we know that isn't the case as the history of policing, especially in America, was built off of racism, but the film does sometimes critique law enforcement in regards to how dangerous a prejudiced mindset can affect how officers treat people. They even poke fun at certain regulations like parking tickets, how ridiculous it is to give someone a ticket for running the meter only 3 seconds late. I'm sure you can even look at Nick's side hustle selling popsicles as a critique on capitalism. And dude, I'm from Chicago, I know a little something about corruption. They don't call it the Windy City because of the weather, but Lionheart's secrets were per the course. And I appreciate the writers for not being afraid to tackle these subjects while making it fun for audiences to sit through for an hour and 48-minute runtime. Well, I guess that's not too long. Anyways, Zootopia, while flawed, is a movie that challenges you to question your own biases and forces you to ask yourself how you'll respond to the criticisms of those biases. I think the film in its tone is way too lighthearted overall, but when you look deeper, it's not so difficult to catch its references. That in its own right is pretty deep. So yeah, it's a deep film. I still think The Taming Collars would have been a gut-wrenching premise, but perhaps too much for children to watch. But with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Zootopia is one of my favorite movies. The world just feels so lived in. I also really love animals, so that aesthetic really connected with me. I should also mention I'm starting a new series on the channel. It could possibly be my next video, but don't quote me on that. It'll be called Through the Side Character's Gaze, and I think y'all are gonna love it. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Until next time.